Recently I announced on my latest Walking Dead review that I wasn't going to be doing any more reviews for The Walking Dead. Why? Check out that review to know why it is that the finale persuaded me to make such a decision. And of course, watch it at your own discretion because there are going to be spoilers in that review. Just like there's going to be spoilers in this review for the series that I'm going to continue to watch and I'm going to continue to review, because at least this keeps the momentum and the pacing and all the things that it has going for going, because it's just that good of a show and it's not letting up. And that show is, of course, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. finally returns after its little break during this 3-pod structure of a season where the 4th season is divided into 3 parts. We had the Ghost Rider, we had LMD, and now we have the Framework, which is part of this virtual reality that was created by Dr. Radcliffe at the end of the last episode. And now we find our main heroes trapped in this alternate reality. And inadvertently what this does is basically it creates this little scenario where it's like in fact the episode is called What If? What if different decisions had happened in these characters' lives that led them down a different path? And it's kind of like a slightly different take on the whole It's a Wonderful Life type of scenario that you've seen in other movies and TV shows. In fact, almost every single sitcom is bound to have one episode where the main character wishes that something hadn't happened, and then they go through the whole thing as to why they have to learn that, oh, they should be glad that it happened, and that whole mumbo jumbo, that whole feel good stuff. But this is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It has its own rules that it could kind of go through. And so the only 2 characters that are kind of self-aware thanks to their own line of coding within the programming of the network is Simmons and Daisy. They're the only ones that are conscious about what's going on, how it's not real, and how everybody else was programmed by Radcliffe to have different memories. Now, as I watched the episode, there were 2 things that initially during the first 10 or 15 minutes of this new episode were a little jarring and were a little difficult to kind of get adjusted to. Just like our characters are trying to adjust to the reality of the framework, me as a viewer, I found 2 things to be a little frustrating. I struggled to kind of grasp onto the notions of these 2 things. One was the cinematography. Not a huge fan of this muted Zack Snyder type of cinematography. Never been keen to it. So to see it be used here for an effect where it has to make it obvious that, yeah, we're in the framework, I don't know. I'm just not a huge fan of it, but as the episode went on, I kind of learned to kind of tune it out a little bit and just not focus on it too much. Of course, this is going to jump back into a normal, colorful type of world that we've seen in the previous episodes in the 4th season thus far, once we jump into the real world. It's kind of like how Breaking Bad would use that yellowish tint to signify that, hey, you're on the Mexican side of the border, and then once you don't see the yellow tint anymore, now you're in New Mexico. And the second thing that I found kind of weird was that everybody was sharing the same reality. I was under the impression, based on that last episode with that little montage at the end, that everybody was in their own version of the framework, because everybody had their own set of memories except for Daisy and Gemma, which were the only ones that were able to willingly go in there with their own subconscious still intact. So I was under the impression that everybody had their own kind of set except for maybe Daisy and Gemma, because they were able to hook up together within the framework. Everybody else was kind of scattered away in different realities, so I thought that they were going to have to traverse through the realities to finally reunite and try to escape out of the clutches of the framework. That was my understanding. So to see them go to these people, these alternate versions of their friends, and be like, hey, snap out of it, it's kind of like we've done this before. And it still kind of hurts because these are characters that you love, and now to see them be evil in a different light, sure, it's a little hard to grasp, but because I had a different notion in mind, it's a little, I don't know, there was a part of me that was hoping that it would be different realities, because that's a bit more science fiction-y, and that would have been really cool. But to see it just be one kind of shared universe, and each one's going to have to go to all of them and try to find some kind of trigger that's going to snap them out of it, it's going to be something that's going to be expected for the coming episodes. It's not bad, but it's going to be just a tad bit predictable in that respect. And if you don't believe me, the episode itself said, yeah, okay, let's go ahead and do it at least with 1 character, actually 2 characters, 1.5 characters, because 1 is not aware. whereas the other one was left in a little cliffhanger towards the ending stinger, where we see Coulson kind of be brought back to reality, and he says Daisy, so he recognizes her. Okay, Coulson's done, now we got the others to take care of. The other one that is a little bit of a bait and switch, but at the same time I'm like, okay, I kind of like this. It's a nice change of pace because we haven't seen this version of the character in a really long time, and that is Ward. Ward, who reappears in this episode. It's like the show just can't let go of Brett Dalton as Ward, so he's going to be around for a while, but it's nice to see that this time he's not a full-blown villain. Sure, he's working for Hydra, but we learn by the end of the episode that he's part of this resistance, and because he joined the resistance, he knows that Daisy is an inhuman, and in this alternate version, he's pretty much a good guy. So it's nice to see that different version of Ward, of what if, because in the real world, he turned out to be a villain. So here, he's kind of taking the opposite arc. He starts out as a villain, and now he's kind of working his way now to being a redeemable good guy that's hopefully going to be helping out Daisy and Gemma along the way. And of course, who else can be the director of not only Hydra, but this reality of the framework itself, than Ada. Ada's back again. She's a little less robotic because Ada kind of programmed a different version of herself in this world, so she's a little bit more humanoidish, so I'll take that. At least she doesn't feel as stilted as she did before, because that's just my personal preference. There's something about her way that she acts as Ada that just gets on my nerves, even though it's still a good performance, but at the same time, I'm like, oh, I just wish she would die already. Here she feels like a much more grounded villain as the lead of not only Hydra, but the framework, and it's revealed that she's the one that's kind of staying 2 steps ahead of Simmons and Daisy by locking them in there. They don't have that failsafe that Gemma programmed within the Matrix. I mean, the framework. She wasn't able to use that, and of course it's because of Ada. She's 2 steps ahead all the time. She's an AI. It's bound to happen. So what is going to be the upper hand that they could use? And that's something that is intriguing, that's keeping me going along for the ride for the next episode, as well as a number of other things that we didn't see in this episode. We didn't see Mac, and we didn't see Mace. I'm willing to bet anything, money even, that they're the ones part of this resistance that we didn't even get to see in this episode. We learned that Ward is part of it, and we saw them get mentioned here and there by some of the other characters, like that kid that was spraying on the car. We heard mention of this resistance, but we didn't get a full glimpse of it. Chances are, not only is Mac part of the resistance, or maybe Mac is off doing his own thing with his daughter Hope, but Mace, Jeffrey Mace, is going to be the leader, as the Patriot, for this resistance. I guarantee it. But hey, I could be wrong. There were a couple moments where I thought that the Doctor was going to be Whitehall. Whitehall was going to be brought back to some capacity, but it turned out to be Fitz, which I think was a little bit more fitting, because again, seeing characters in different light, characters that you loved and you've seen for the longest time in one type of personality, and to see them in a completely alternate personality, it's strange, but it's effective. And seeing a Fitz in that way, and for a good reason, because he lost Simmons in this alternate reality. Her dying is what kind of got the snowball rolling, and you kind of see some kind of resemblance of that in his conversation with Ada at the end. You see that something's going on there. But again, this comes back to what I was talking about, where there is that slight little grain of predictability. Chances are he's going to see some kind of image of Simmons still being alive out there, and that's what's going to turn him around. May's going to see something about Brain, like an alternate version or whatever, or maybe Coulson, now regaining his consciousness, is going to come over and be like, hey, snap out of it, and he's going to trigger something, and that's what's going to bring these characters together. And this goes back to another intriguing thing, is that where's Radcliffe? Radcliffe may be dead in the real world, but maybe he was jacked in right on time by Ada at the end of the last episode to be doing something. Maybe, hey, oh my god, it just boggled my mind. What if he's the leader of the resistance? Or maybe he has some kind of input in that resistance. Maybe he's like that advisor, whereas Mace is the actual leader that leads the troops or something like that. So many endless possibilities, but it would make sense because, again, Simmons and Gemma are Cypher in this episode, because numerous times they're asking themselves, what is going on? So am I, because there are a couple things here that don't make sense. And initially, what didn't make sense to me was that everybody was sharing these memories. Everybody was giving these different memories so that they didn't feel pain or some kind of resentment or something that they regret. here they're all tied in. So why is it that they're all tied in necessarily? And I feel like Radcliffe may have had something up his sleeve right before being assassinated by Ada, but before jacking into the framework itself. Well, see, that's where it comes down to it. This may not have been one of the shiniest episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D, especially with that grayscale-ish type of cinematography, but it definitely led an awful lot of things for me to ponder on in which type of direction they could go, and so many different plot lines and theories and outcomes and so many things to question. And that's all because I like these characters, and to see them in this type of situation, no matter how predictable or kind of by the numbers it may turn out to be, it's still one that I'm invested in because they've come a long way, and I still enjoy seeing these characters be put through these situations where I want to root for them. And so far they have not given me an excuse to let up from that. So I'm going to be giving What If a low 8 out of 10. Not necessarily the big bombastic return that I was expecting, but still a good episode with an awful lot of things that can maybe play out in the background that can lead to some bigger moments that are going to make a very cool third pod for to kind of wrap up season 4 until later on this year, when there should be a season 5, though it hasn't been greenlit, and that has me tremendously worried. But leave it to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D to punch you in the feels with a little tribute there at the end to the late Bill Paxton. Oh, that one hurt. So now I throw it over to you guys. What do you guys think of the return of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D with the episode What If? Do you think that the scenarios played out well? Do you think it's a little strange that they were all connected? And what are your theories and outcomes and predictions going forward from here on out? How do you expect things to play out? How do you expect certain characters to return within the framework? And at one point do you expect them to kind of jump out of the framework and fully tackle Ada head on in the real world? Please post all of your feedback in the comments below, like and share this video, and continue to subscribe for future Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D reviews that will definitely be continuing, because this is a show that knows how to pace well and knows how to pay things off. But in the meantime, you don't necessarily need a framework to poke at my brain. All you have to do is just follow me on Instagram and on Twitter at DarkSpiderDavid. Until next time, guys, take care. I will see you all later.